"And that, my esteemed counsel, is why this pathetic resistance will be crushed before dinner," Admiral Carcax declared, his scaled hands spread wide across the war room's holographic display. The massive Drachnid's fanged smile reflected off the glowing tactical readout showing Earth's solar system. His claws traced lazy circles through Jupiter's orbit, already plotting victory formations. A shrill alarm cut through his speech, making several council members jump in their seats. "My lord," Security Chief Vakrol's twin head frills twitched and rippled like seaweed in a current. "The outer detection grid, there's an anomaly. Something's not right with the pattern." "Silence that infernal noise," Carcax growled, slamming a fist on the table. "Clearly another malfunction in these outdated systems. We should have replaced them cycles ago." The War Council nodded in agreement, their own frills and scales moving in synchronized bootlicking rhythm, but Vakrol kept studying his screens with growing unease. "Admiral, with respect, I'm seeing a pattern. Every third satellite shows a microsecond power fluctuation moving in sequence toward—" "Spare me your paranoid theories, Chief." Carcax waved a dismissive claw. "Next, you'll tell me space ghosts are coming to get us." The ship's comm crackled with static before clearing. "Admiral." Dr. Nexus's voice carried an edge of worry from the nearby Zenthari research vessel. "Our advanced scans suggest the humans possess technology far beyond our initial assessment. That single ship they sent—" "One primitive vessel against our armada?" Carcax laughed, his scales rattling like distant thunder. "Even if they somehow slipped past our outer sensors, they'll be space debris soon enough. Perhaps we'll mount their wreckage as a trophy." The alarms finally fell quiet, leaving an uneasy stillness on the bridge. Several council members shifted in their seats, their earlier confidence starting to crack like old paint. "Battle stations," Carcax ordered with a smirk, adjusting his ceremonial armor. "Let's give them a proper Drachnid welcome. Remind these humans their place in the galaxy, at the bottom of our boot." His confidence never wavered, even as Vakrol's frills kept twitching at every new reading from the sensor grid, dancing an increasingly nervous jig that spread worry through the junior officers like a virus. As Admiral Carcax barked his orders, dismissing the human ship as a minor nuisance, his war council buzzed with nervous laughter. Meanwhile, far across the void, aboard the lone Earth vessel, Commander Reynolds and his crew silently watched the enemy fleet, fully aware of the impossible odds before them. The battle had not yet begun, but the war was already being decided in ways the Drachnids could not yet comprehend. Commander Reynolds stood at the center of the Phoenix's bridge, his steady gaze meeting each crew member's eyes. The holographic display behind him showed the overwhelming odds, 300 Drachnid warships against their single vessel. Their massive hulls bristled with weapon ports, a wall of steel and death stretching as far as the eye could see. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice calm but firm, "we're about to attempt something that's never been done before. One ship against 300. But remember, we're not here to start a war. We're here to prevent one." His words carried weight, backed by years of command experience and countless tough decisions. Lieutenant Kim studied the tactical display, her fingers hovering over the weapons controls. The enemy formations danced across her screen in intricate patterns. "Commander, we have multiple attack vectors mapped. The question is, do we show them what we can do or keep them guessing?" From her station, Dr. Carter's hands moved swiftly across her console, screens flickering with streams of data. "Prometheus protocol is green across all boards. The AI matrix is already finding weak points in their network architecture. We can slip in and out of their systems like ghosts if we need to." Her eyes narrowed as she processed the incoming information. "How are our Marines holding up, Sergeant?" Reynolds asked, turning to face the burly man at his post. Master Sergeant Delgado straightened his back, pride evident in his stance. "Ready and willing, sir. I've drilled them on the stealth protocols until they could do them in their sleep. They understand. One wrong move could give away our position." He patted the rifle at his side, a habit born from years of service. Reynolds nodded, turning back to the main viewport. The stars beyond seemed to mock their audacious plan. Dr. Carter, begin system-wide infiltration. Lieutenant Kim, plot us a course through their blind spots. We'll maintain stealth for now. Let them wonder where we are. The bridge crew worked in focused silence as the Phoenix's systems powered down to bare minimums. The ship's usually bright running lights dimmed to nothing, plunging them into darkness broken only by essential displays. The low hum of the engines faded to absolute silence, leaving them floating in an eerie quiet. Stealth systems engaged, Lieutenant Kim reported, her voice barely above a whisper. Thrusters at minimal output. We're running dark. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency across the controls. Cloaking field stable, Dr. Carter added, monitoring the readouts closely. Their standard sensors won't pick us up. She double-checked each reading, leaving nothing to chance. Reynolds watched as the massive Drachnid fleet grew larger on their screens, their hulls blocking out the distant stars. Take us in, nice and slow. Let's see what we can learn before we decide whether to knock on their front door. A hint of a smile played at the corner of his mouth, the kind that made enemies nervous. The Phoenix glided forward, invisible against the backdrop of space, heading straight into the heart of enemy territory. Like a wolf among sheep, they moved with deadly purpose, ready to prove that sometimes one ship was all humanity needed. The Phoenix glided unseen through the vast expanse, weaving through sensor blind spots as its crew executed their silent infiltration. Every reading they intercepted confirmed one thing. The Drachnid fleet was woefully unprepared for the kind of battle Earth had brought to their doorstep. Meanwhile, aboard the enemy flagship, Dr. Nexus furrowed her brow, analyzing the strange data, unaware that she was glimpsing the first hints of a game-changing revelation. Dr. Nexus's holographic form flickered in the war room of the Drachnid flagship, her image occasionally breaking into static. Her large, bright eyes reflected worry as she addressed Admiral Karkax and Security Chief Vakrol. The room's dim lighting cast an eerie glow on their faces. "Admiral, these readings cannot be ignored," she insisted, bringing up a display of star charts that filled the room with a soft blue light. "The humans are using something far more advanced than simple cloaking technology. The data patterns are unlike anything we've seen before." Karkax waved his hand dismissively, his scales gleaming under the holographic displays. "More of your theories, Doctor. We have a fleet of 300 ships at our command. What difference do their little tricks make against such might?" "Look here." Nexus pointed to multiple blinking dots across different star systems, her finger passing through the hologram. "The Phoenix is somehow broadcasting its signature in multiple locations simultaneously. These aren't random glitches. They follow a clear pattern that defies our understanding of physics." Vakrol stepped closer to the display, his face tightening with concern as he studied the data streams. "Admiral, she might be right. I've been tracking similar patterns in our sensor logs." He pulled up recent data streams which danced across the air in complex formations. "See these energy spikes? They match perfectly with Dr. Nexus's findings. The timing is too precise to be coincidence." "Illusions." Karkax slammed his fist on the table, making the holograms waver. "You waste my time with talk of human magic while Earth sits undefended. Their precious Phoenix can't be in multiple places at once. It's nothing but smoke and mirrors." "But that's exactly what they want us to think," Nexus pleaded, her holographic form growing more agitated. "They're using advanced misdirection techniques that—" "Enough!" Karkax's voice boomed through the chamber, echoing off the metallic walls. "I will not delay our assault because of ghost stories and sensor malfunctions. Prepare the fleet for a direct attack on Earth's defenses. This discussion is over." Nexus's hologram flickered as she turned away from the War Council, her form briefly splitting into rainbow-colored fragments. She opened a private channel to her superiors on the Zenthari science vessel, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "High Council, I must report grave concerns." She spoke quickly, glancing nervously at Karkax's back. "The Drachnids refuse to acknowledge the technological sophistication we're facing. Their pride blinds them to the danger. If they proceed with a direct assault, we could lose a significant portion of the fleet. The humans are playing a game we don't understand. Before her superiors could respond, a new alert flashed across the war room's screens in angry red pulses. Unknown energy signatures detected in multiple sectors, a computerized voice announced, its tone eerily calm. All non-essential communications are hereby suspended, Karkax declared, his scales darkening with anger. Focus all resources on tracking these human deceptions. We will not be fooled by their tricks. Nexus watched helplessly as her connection to the Zenthari vessel cut out with a sharp crackle, leaving her with a deep sense of unease about what was to come. The war room fell into an uncomfortable silence broken only by the steady beeping of sensor alerts. Dr. Nexus's warnings went unheeded as Karkax scoffed at the notion of human ingenuity. But in the void of space, far beyond his arrogance, the Phoenix's crew prepared their next move. With the Prometheus protocol in full effect, Reynolds and his team had already set their sights on the next critical target, a lightly guarded Drachnid outpost, a linchpin in their sensor network. Commander Reynolds stood at the bridge of the Phoenix, his steady gaze fixed on the holographic display of the Drachnid outpost. The station hung in space like a metal spider, its long arms reaching out to collect data from countless sensors scattered across the sector. Red warning markers blinked across the display, highlighting potential threat zones and defensive capabilities. Dr. Carter, status report on the disabling systems, he said, noting how she gripped her console tightly, her knuckles white against the smooth metal. All systems are green, Commander, she replied, her voice wavering slightly. But we've never tested this at full scale. The energy pulse should overload their systems without causing permanent damage, but she bit her lip, her usual confidence faltering. You've done amazing work, Reynolds assured her, his calm voice steadying the entire bridge crew. Lieutenant Kim, tactical assessment? Kim's fingers danced across her screen, her movements quick and purposeful. The station's defenses are minimal. They rely on stealth and their connection to the main fleet. One shot is all we need, if we hit the right spot. She zoomed in on a glowing section of the hologram. In the ship's armory, Master Sergeant Delgado checked his team's gear one final time, testing each magnetic seal and power pack with practiced efficiency. Remember, folks, quick and quiet if we need to go in. No heroics, I mean it. Anyone tries to play super soldier and they'll be scrubbing toilets for a month. Reynolds addressed the bridge crew, his voice carrying the weight of command. This station is the backbone of their detection grid. We take it quietly. We gain control of their eyes and ears. Dr. Carter, begin power-up sequence for the micro-jump drive. The Phoenix's engines hummed as space curved around them, the stars blurring into streaks of light. In an instant, they vanished and reappeared behind the station's main sensor blind spot, settling into position like a predator stalking its prey. Target locked, Kim reported, her hand hovering over the firing controls. Disabling pulse ready. Fire, Reynolds ordered. A blue-white beam lanced out from the Phoenix, cutting through the void. It struck the station's power core, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, section by section, the station's lights winked out like stars being snuffed from the sky. Direct hit, Carter exclaimed, her earlier doubt replaced with triumph. Power systems are cascading exactly as designed. No structural damage detected. They won't even need to replace a light bulb. Delgado, you're up, Reynolds commanded. Moving in, the Master Sergeant responded. His team's boarding shuttle detached from the Phoenix, gliding silently toward the darkened station, barely visible against the backdrop of space. Minutes ticked by in tense silence, broken only by the soft beeping of monitoring equipment. Finally, Delgado's voice crackled over the comm. Station secured, Commander. Their systems are ours, already feeding false data back to the main fleet. They'll be chasing shadows for weeks. Reynolds allowed himself a small smile. Well done, everyone. Phase 1, complete. He watched as new data streams began flowing across his display, each one a small victory in their larger plan. As the Phoenix slipped through the shadows, its disabling pulse worked flawlessly, leaving the Drachnid outpost in darkness. The false data streams had been fed back to the enemy fleet, ensuring their confusion would only deepen. But on the flagship, Admiral Carcax was done laughing. His fury burned hotter than a collapsing star as reports of the outpost's sudden blackout reached his ears. Admiral Carcax paced the command deck of his flagship, his clawed feet clicking against the metallic floor. The loss of the outpost gnawed at him like acid eating through armor. 3 days without contact, and still no explanation. Just silence. "Incompetent fools," he roared, slamming his fist on a nearby console hard enough to crack its surface. "How does an entire station fall silent without firing a single shot? Where are the debris? The bodies? The distress calls?" Dr. Nexus's hologram flickered before him, her tall, willowy form casting blue light across the deck. "Admiral, please. The humans aren't using brute force. Their technology suggests—" "Spare me your theories." Carcax cut her off, waving a dismissive hand through her projection. "A single ship cannot threaten the might of the hegemony. We've crushed entire civilizations. This is nothing more than an annoying pest." Security Chief Vakrol stepped forward, datapad in hand, his scales reflecting the red warning lights that still flashed overhead. "Sir, we've detected unusual energy readings in 3 nearby systems. If the Phoenix can truly jump between locations as quickly as we suspect, then dispatch ships to guard those systems." Carcax snapped, baring his teeth. "I want every critical outpost protected. Post double patrols if you have to." "But sir," Vakrol's voice carried a note of concern, his tail twitching nervously. "Spreading our forces that thin could leave us vulnerable to—" "Are you questioning my orders, Chief?" Carcax's eyes narrowed dangerously, his claws flexing at his sides. "No, sir. I'll begin coordinating the deployments immediately." Vakrol bowed slightly and moved to his station, fingers flying across the controls as he sent urgent messages to the fleet. The command deck hummed with nervous energy as officers rushed to comply. Dr. Nexus tried one last time, her holographic form growing larger. "Admiral, my analysis shows their vessel employs advanced space-bending technology. We must consider—" "Enough!" Carcax bellowed, his roar echoing off the walls. But alone in his private thoughts, doubt crept in like an unwelcome shadow. How had they lost the outpost without a trace? What kind of weapon could disable an entire station without leaving a mark? Where was the glory in fighting an enemy that wouldn't show itself? He turned to address the command deck, drawing himself up to his full height. The loss of the outpost falls squarely on its commanders. Their negligence has embarrassed the hegemony. His words rang hollow even to his own ears, but he pressed on. "We will crush this human vessel and make an example of their arrogance. The Drachnid Empire has never known defeat, and we won't start now." Around him, crew members exchanged uncertain glances. The proud Drachnid warriors, used to swift victories, now faced an enemy they couldn't even see. Some nervously checked their weapons, as if the Phoenix might suddenly appear in their midst. "Deploy the fleet," Carcax ordered, his voice harder than ever, masking his growing unease. "Protect every vital installation. I want ships in all neighboring systems within the hour. Triple the sensor sweeps. Nothing gets through without us knowing." Dr. Nexus watched silently as the mighty Drachnid armada split apart, vessels jumping to different coordinates in bright flashes of light. The great fleet, once a concentrated hammer of destruction, now scattered like leaves in a storm, breaking the most basic rule of warfare. In her translucent features, something like pity showed as she watched the Admiral's desperate gambit unfold. Amidst the frantic efforts to restore control, Carcax growled orders, demanding answers. His fleet scrambled to reposition, unaware they were already playing into the humans' hands. Meanwhile, aboard the Phoenix, Reynolds and his officers reviewed the unfolding chaos, watching as their carefully laid deceptions forced the enemy into an ever-weakening position. In the Phoenix's command center, Dr. Carter's fingers flew across her console, her movements quick and focused. "The AI has done it," she announced, her voice tight with excitement and a hint of disbelief. "We're tapped into their comm networks. We can project phantom ships anywhere in their detection grid. The system's working even better than we hoped." Commander Reynolds leaned forward in his chair, studying the holographic map floating before him. 6 red dots marked their targets. Drachnid outposts spread across different star systems, each one a key point in the enemy's defense network. "Show me the projection range," he ordered, his eyes narrowing as he analyzed their options. The map lit up with ghostly blue lines, showing where they could create convincing illusions of the Phoenix. The web of possibilities stretched across dozens of light years, far more extensive than they'd initially planned. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim spoke up from her station, her face troubled as she examined the data scrolling across her screen. "These outposts, they're not just military installations. They handle civilian communications, medical emergency responses, basic life support systems. The network integration is deeper than we thought." Reynolds turned to her, his expression serious. "Explain." "If we knock them out completely, we could put innocent lives at risk. Entire colonies depend on these networks for everything from air filtration to water recycling. We'd be hurting civilians, not soldiers." Master Sergeant Delgado stepped forward from where he'd been waiting near the tactical display, his Marine teams already prepped for deployment in the launch bay below. "We could split into smaller groups, plant the disruptors with careful planning, target only military systems. My teams know how to work clean." Reynolds nodded slowly, weighing the risks against their objectives. "Lieutenant Kim, reconfigure the disruptors. Minimum damage settings. We disable, not destroy. We're here to win a war, not create a humanitarian crisis." "Yes, sir," Kim replied, relief clear in her voice as her fingers began dancing across the controls. "I'll adjust the frequencies to avoid civilian channels. We can thread the needle if we're careful." Carter pulled up detailed schematics of each outpost, the rotating holograms casting blue light across her determined face. "The AI can maintain phantom signatures in all 6 systems for about 40 minutes. After that, the illusions become unstable. The power drain is massive." "That's our window, then." Reynolds stood up, his movement drawing all eyes to him. "Delgado, how many teams?" 6 teams of 4, each equipped with stealth gear and disruptors. We go in quiet, plant the devices, get out fast. My people have drilled this until they can do it in their sleep." Kim's fingers moved across her tactical display, making final adjustments. "Disruptors reprogrammed, sir. They'll knock out weapons, shields, and military comms. Should leave basic services intact. The civilians won't even know we were there." Reynolds looked at each of them in turn, his gaze steady and confident. "This is a risk. We'll be stretched thin, teams operating far from support, but if we pull this off, we show them we can hit anywhere, anytime," Delgado finished with a grim smile. "Make them guess where we'll pop up next." "Exactly." Reynolds straightened his uniform with a sharp tug. "Dr. Carter, initiate the Phantom protocols. Lieutenant Kim, plot our real jump course. Sergeant Delgado, get your teams ready. Time to make some noise." The bridge hummed with activity as the crew prepared for the complex operation. On the main viewer, multiple images of the Phoenix flickered into existence, each seeming as real as the original. The illusions were perfect down to the smallest detail. "Phantom ships holding stable," Carter reported, monitoring the energy readings closely. "AI is maintaining all signatures. The enemy won't be able to tell which one is real." "Teams are in position," Delgado confirmed from the tactical station. "Ready to deploy on your mark. Everyone knows their jobs." Reynolds took his command chair, settling into it with practiced ease. "Lieutenant Kim?" She looked up from her station, determination written across her features. "Jump coordinates locked in, sir. We can begin on your order. All systems green." "Then let's show them what one ship can do." Reynolds leaned forward, his voice carrying the weight of command. "Execute jump sequence. Operation starts now." The Phoenix vanished in a flash of light, while its phantom doubles appeared to do the same across 6 different star systems, beginning their bold strike against the heart of Drachnid control. In the darkness between stars, the hunt was on. With the Drachnid fleet thrown into disarray, the Phoenix's illusionary projections flickered across multiple systems, each one a ghostly specter keeping the enemy off balance. Carcax, now beset with conflicting reports, struggled to maintain control. As more outposts faltered, the once mighty war machine of the hegemony began to fracture. In the Drachnid flagship's command center, red warning lights flashed across every screen, bathing the bridge in an ominous crimson glow. Admiral Carcax gripped the edges of his command chair until his knuckles turned white, his jaw clenched as reports flooded in from dozens of star systems. The air felt thick with panic. "Admiral, Station Beta 7 has gone dark," a junior officer shouted, his voice cracking. "All systems just stopped." "Impossible," Carcax growled, baring his teeth. "That's 3 sectors away from the last attack. Nothing can move that fast." Dr. Nexus's hologram flickered beside him, her form wavering with static. The energy signatures match perfectly with the previous strikes. This has to be some form of advanced projection technology, perhaps using linked microtears in space-time. "Silence!" Carcax slammed his fist down hard enough to crack his display screen. "Get me Sub-Commander Vex's battle group now." Security Chief Vakrol stepped forward, his scales tight with tension, sweat beading on his ridged forehead. "Sir, communications are scrambled across all frequencies. We're getting ghost signals from everywhere. It's like they're dancing through our networks." "My lord," another officer called out, voice trembling. "Sub-Commander Zarath requests immediate reinforcements. They're detecting multiple Phoenix signatures in their sector. The readings, they make no sense." Carcax's composure cracked like thin ice. "Send the Third Fleet to—" "No, belay that. Keep them in position. No. Redirect them to—" He stopped mid-sentence, realizing he was contradicting himself, his legendary confidence evaporating. On the main viewer, the tactical display showed pure chaos. Green dots representing Drachnid ships, scattered in different directions like startled fish, responding to phantom threats. Red warning indicators kept popping up as more outposts fell silent, spreading like a virus across the star map. "The humans aren't even firing weapons," Vakrol muttered, studying the incoming data with wide eyes. "They're just shutting everything down, like flipping off switches across the galaxy." Dr. Nexus worked frantically at her remote station, her fingers flying over controls. These energy patterns suggest some kind of wormhole network, but the scale is unprecedented. One ship couldn't possibly, the power requirements alone would be astronomical. "Admiral," a panicked voice cut through the chamber like a knife. "The civilian governors on Outpost 9 are surrendering. They say the humans promise to restore their basic services if they stand down. They're already powering up their medical facilities." Carcax's scales flushed dark with rage, almost black. "Cowards, traitors!" He spun toward his navigation officer, spittle flying. "Plot a course for Earth, now!" "Sir," Dr. Nexus pleaded, her hologram raising both hands, "we can't abandon our defensive positions. This could be exactly what they want. We'd be leaving everything exposed." "We will crush their homeworld," Carcax snarled, pounding his armrest, "and force their precious Phoenix to come running back to defend it. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed." The bridge fell silent except for the continuing flood of distress calls from distant outposts, a chorus of fear and confusion. Vakrol and Nexus exchanged worried glances as their admiral, his legendary composure completely shattered, began barking contradictory orders to his increasingly confused and frightened crew. The mighty Drachnid fleet, terror of 1,000 worlds, was coming apart at the seams. Panic rippled through the Drachnid ranks as multiple sectors reported simultaneous incursions, leaving Carcax grasping at straws. Across the stars, the crew of the Phoenix observed their handiwork. Phase 1 had been executed flawlessly. Now they turned their focus toward the next and most critical phase, intercepting the Drachnid assault before it reached Earth. Inside the Phoenix's command center, Commander Reynolds studied the holographic display showing the scattered Drachnid fleet. The blue dots of disabled outposts formed a clear path of their success. "Commander," a gentle voice called out. Ambassador Jana Moreno's AI avatar materialized beside him, her diplomatic uniform crisp and perfect. "I've received urgent communications from within the hegemony." Reynolds turned to face her. "Go ahead, Ambassador." 3 species under Drachnid rule have reached out secretly. They're watching our careful takedowns of military targets. They want to talk about breaking away from the hegemony. Lieutenant Kim stepped forward from her tactical station. "Sir, we can't ignore Earth. Carcax's fleet is moving toward our home." "The lieutenant's right," Dr. Carter added, pointing to the tactical display. "We should show them what the Phoenix can do right in Earth's orbit. Make them think twice about attacking." Reynolds rubbed his chin. "And abandon these people asking for help?" Master Sergeant Delgado's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, my team's just finished at Outpost Sigma 3. Not a single death. The local population, they're treating us like heroes." "That's exactly my point," Ambassador Moreno said. "We're changing hearts and minds. The hegemony is built on fear, but we're showing there's another way." Lieutenant Kim slammed her hand on the console. "Every minute we wait puts Earth at greater risk. We can come back and help these species after we protect our home." "The AI matrix could handle both," Dr. Carter offered. "We could split our focus." "And risk failing at both?" Kim shot back. "We need to hit Carcax's fleet with everything we've got." Reynolds held up his hand for silence. The weight of command pressed down on his shoulders as he looked at the tactical display again. Dots of red showed Carcax's warships moving steadily toward Earth. The blue marks of their victories sparkled across hegemony space like stars of hope. "Ambassador," he said finally, "tell our new friends we'll return." But Kim is right. We protect Earth first. He straightened his uniform. "Plot a course to intercept Carcax's fleet. We'll meet them before they get anywhere near our solar system." "Aye, sir," Kim responded, already plotting the course. "Dr. Carter, power up all systems. Delgado, get your teams back aboard. We're about to show the Drachnid what one Earth ship can really do." The Phoenix's engines hummed to life as they prepared to defend their home. The greatest battle of the 7-hour war was about to begin. As the Phoenix set its course to intercept Carcax's armada, Earth's defenses prepared for the inevitable confrontation. The Drachnids expected a quick, overwhelming victory. Instead, as they exited faster than light travel at the edges of the Sol system, they were met with an unexpected resistance, one that defied everything they had assumed about human vulnerability. Admiral Carcax stood on the bridge of his flagship, his scaled fingers drumming against the command console. Earth's blue-white sphere filled the main view screen, dotted with what appeared to be primitive orbital stations. "Pathetic defenses," he sneered. "Begin the testing salvo. Show them true Drachnid might." The fleet's forward batteries lit up the darkness of space. Streams of energy weapons struck the nearest station, but instead of shattering, the station's surface rippled within strange, adaptive shield matrix. "Impossible." Carcax slammed his fist down. "Those are barely more than tin cans." Dr. Nexus's voice crackled over the comm. "Admiral, wait. These stations, I recognize these designs. They bear similarities to Dr. Carter's work. The humans aren't using brute force shields, they're—" "Silence!" Carcax cut her off. "All ships, full bombardment. Crush these insects." The Drachnid fleet unleashed its full fury, but as their weapons struck home, Earth stations responded. Precise beams of energy lanced out, striking key systems on multiple Drachnid frigates. Ships began dropping out of formation, their power cores disabled. "Admiral?" Security Chief Vakral stepped forward, his voice tight. "We've lost 12 frigates already. Their targeting is unlike anything we've encountered. These tactics aren't—" "Are you suggesting retreat, Chief?" Carcax's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Perhaps you'd prefer to run like a coward." "I'm suggesting we reassess." Vakral stood his ground. These humans clearly possess technology far beyond our initial estimates. Listen to him, Dr. Nexus pleaded through the comm. The way they've modified standard shield harmonics, the precision of their disabling shots, they're not primitive at all. They're innovative in ways we never considered. Carcax ordered the fleet to regroup, watching as more of his ships limped into defensive positions. He moved to the bridge's observation window, scales bristling with rage as he stared at Earth's stubbornly intact defenses. A flicker of movement caught his eye. There, at the edge of their sensor range, a familiar silhouette appeared briefly before vanishing again, the Phoenix, taunting them with its presence. "Sir," Vakral reported quietly, "we've lost 23 ships to disabling fire. The fleet awaits your orders." Carcax's claws dug into his palms as he seethed in silence. Admiral Carcax's battle-tested instincts told him something was wrong, but before he could fully process it, Earth's orbital defenses flickered to life, standing firm against his initial assault. Meanwhile, hidden within the asteroid belt, the Phoenix lay in wait, its crew ready to spring the most audacious counterattack in human history. Commander Reynolds stood at the Phoenix's tactical display, watching the Drachnid fleet spread across Earth's orbit. The massive ships looked like hungry predators circling their prey. "Dr. Carter, status on Project Prometheus." Reynolds kept his voice steady, though his heart raced. Dr. Carter's fingers flew across her console. "The quantum entanglement net is ready, sir. We've never tested it at this scale, but the math checks out. It should freeze their ships in place without harming the crews. Like catching fish in a giant space net," Delgado said with a grin. He adjusted his combat vest, checking his gear one last time. Reynolds nodded. "Once we lock down their ships, your boarding team needs to move fast, Sergeant. Focus on their command vessel." "My people are ready, sir. We'll slip in quiet and take control before they know what hit them." Lieutenant Kim studied the tactical display, her eyes narrowed. "Commander, I have a plan. The asteroid belt gives us perfect cover for an ambush. We can disable one of their cruisers first. Show them what we can do." "Make it happen, Lieutenant." Reynolds watched as Kim's hands danced across the weapons console. The Phoenix glided silently through the asteroid field. When they emerged, Kim targeted the nearest Drachnid cruiser with surgical precision. Their weapons struck key systems, leaving the massive ship dead in space without destroying it. "Direct hit," Kim reported. "No casualties detected." Carter spoke up, her voice tight with worry. "Sir, some of the crew are concerned. If the Drachnids escalate, can we stick to non-lethal tactics?" Reynolds faced his bridge crew. "We're here to protect Earth, but also to show there's a better way. We don't need to destroy to win." Delgado checked his weapon. "My team's in position, Commander. Just say the word." "Dr. Carter, initiate the quantum net." Carter pressed a sequence of commands. The space around them shimmed like heat waves on a summer day. The effect spread outward, enveloping ship after ship in its gossamer web. "Net deployment successful," Carter announced. "Drachnid ships are losing propulsion. Weapon systems powering down." "Boarding team, prepare for launch," Delgado commanded through his comlink. His Marines gathered at the airlock, ready to capture the largest Drachnid warship. The shimmering net continued to expand, trapping more vessels in its ethereal grasp. Reynolds watched the tactical display as red dots representing Drachnid ships turned yellow, disabled but intact. With a precision that stunned even their own analysts, the Phoenix's quantum net expanded, disabling dozens of enemy ships in mere moments. But Carcax's flagship, its reactors burning hot with raw power, resisted the effect. As the Drachnid forces scrambled to respond, a desperate battle for control of the warship was already underway inside its very halls. Inside the Drachnid battleship's dimly lit corridors, Master Sergeant Delgado led his Marines forward. Their boots made soft thumps against the metal deck plates. "Security teams incoming," Vakral's voice crackled through the ship's communication system. "Crush these human insects." Delgado signaled his team to take cover as heavy footsteps approached. "Remember, folks, Stun settings only unless there's no choice. We're here to save lives, not take them. The first wave of Drachnid security forces charged around the corner, weapons blazing. Delgado's Marines responded with precise bursts from their stun weapons. Blue energy pulses filled the corridor, dropping the massive alien warriors unconscious but alive. On Carcax's flagship bridge, Dr. Nexus studied the readings from the quantum net with growing amazement. The intricate patterns confirmed everything she'd theorized. Admiral, these humans, they could have destroyed our entire fleet. They're choosing not to. Silence! Carcax slammed his fist on his command chair. All vessels under attack, initiate self-destruct protocols. Better to die than surrender to these primitives. Delgado's team fought their way through 3 more security checkpoints, getting closer to the bridge. They're trying to blow the ship, his tech specialist called out. 2 minutes until core overload. Double time it, people, Delgado ordered, leading the charge forward. They reached the bridge's main doors with seconds to spare. 2 quick bursts disabled the guards. Their tech specialist's fingers flew across the control panel, overriding the self-destruct with moments to spare. Bridge secure, Delgado transmitted, surveying the unconscious Drachnid officers. His Marines efficiently secured weapons and restraints. Hostiles disarmed, minimal casualties. From his flagship, Carcax's enraged roar echoed through the command channel. Even as Carcax bellowed his defiance, his own soldiers faltered, their will breaking as they realized their fleet had been ensnared without a single casualty. The Phoenix's boarding team moved swiftly, securing control over the massive ship. Meanwhile, deep within the capital station, Dr. Nexus hesitated before sending a private transmission. The war might be over, but what came next would define their future. Dr. Nexus sat alone in her lab, surrounded by holographic displays showing battle data. Her long fingers trembled as she initiated contact with the Phoenix. Commander Reynolds appeared on her screen, his calm face a stark contrast to the chaos around her. This is unexpected, Doctor. Commander, we need to talk. She glanced over her shoulder. What you've done here, disabling our ships without destroying them, it's opened many eyes. Go on, Reynolds said, leaning forward. The hegemony isn't as united as Carcax claims. Many species like my own were forced to join. Your methods show there's another way besides pure destruction. Her voice dropped lower. Some are calling you liberators. Lieutenant Kim joined Reynolds on screen. The subjugated species, they're ready to turn against the Drachnids? Many are, but they need assurance. Nexus pulled up data streams. Your ambassador Moreno has already made contact with resistance groups on 3 worlds. Dr. Carter appeared next to them. We can help them break free without massive casualties. The same tech we used to disable the outposts. Exactly, Nexus nodded. Commander, let me try to arrange a meeting with Carcax. A chance to end this peacefully. Reynolds considered this. Send him our terms. We'll guarantee fair treatment of all Drachnid citizens if they stand down. Nexus transmitted the message to Carcax. Minutes later, his response came back, a string of threats and insults. He refuses, Nexus said quietly. His pride won't let him see reason. Ambassador Moreno's hologram materialized. Doctor, we've established secure channels with resistance leaders on Zenthar Prime and Nexus Colony. They're eager to discuss terms. Kim and Carter exchanged looks. We should move on the Central Command, Kim said. End this before more ships are disabled. Agreed, Carter added. We have the infiltration plans ready. Reynolds turned back to Nexus. Doctor, thank you for reaching out. Your courage won't be forgotten. Nexus looked down at her hands. I only hope it's enough. The communication ended, leaving her alone with her doubts about Carcax's leadership. On the Phoenix's bridge, Reynolds input new coordinates. Their course would take them straight to the heart of Drachnid power. As the captured warship drifted in space, its systems under Phoenix's control, Dr. Nexus received the first hesitant messages from Drachnid leaders seeking diplomacy. But at the heart of the hegemony, Karkax refused to yield, rallying his last remaining loyalists to make a desperate stand. His final fortress, the Drachnid capital station, bristled with defenses, unaware that its most trusted officers were already considering another path. The Grand Council chamber of the Drachnid capital buzzed with angry voices. Massive stone pillars stretched toward the vaulted ceiling, where ancient battle scenes were carved in gleaming metal. Around the circular table, council members jabbed clawed fingers at floating displays showing disabled Drachnid ships. Our fleet lies scattered and powerless. Elder Voss slammed his fist down. While we sit here, more systems slip from our control. Admiral Karkax stood rigid, his scaled skin darkening with rage. We cannot bow to these humans. The hegemony has never surrendered. Dr. Nexus stepped forward from her observation post, her voice steady despite her fear. Admiral, please, the data is clear. Look at the casualty reports. Security Chief Vakral nodded, pulling up new figures. In every engagement, the Phoenix has disabled our weapons and engines while avoiding life support systems. Their boarding teams use stun weapons. They could have destroyed us completely but chose not to. Weakness, Karkax spat. They lack the warrior spirit to finish what they start. Or perhaps, Elder Mira said softly, they possess something we have forgotten. Mercy. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. On the streets below, visible through towering windows, crowds had gathered. News of the war's true nature had leaked, despite Karkax's efforts to control information. The people know, Vakral said. They've seen the videos from captured outposts. Human Marines helping evacuate civilians, providing medical aid to our wounded. Propaganda, Karkax's voice boomed off the walls. These humans corrupt our people with false kindness. Dr. Nexus stepped closer to the central table. It's not false, Admiral. I've studied their patterns, their technology. They possess weapons we barely understand, yet they choose minimal force. That's not weakness, it's strength. Several council members nodded. Elder Voss spoke again, quieter now. Perhaps it's time to consider terms of peace. Never! Karkax whirled on them. I will not be the first admiral in 10,000 years to surrender the hegemony to aliens. Better to surrender with honor than sacrifice our people for pride, Elder Mira countered. The chamber erupted in shouts. Karkax's supporters squared off against those calling for peace. Outside, the crowd's chanting grew louder. Those who stand with me prepare for battle, Karkax commanded. We will show these humans what true warriors can do. As his loyalists fell in line behind him, others hung back. Dr. Nexus caught Vakral's eye. The security chief gave her a subtle nod. They weren't alone in seeing the truth, or in being willing to act on it. Karkax stormed toward the chamber doors, his voice echoing. To your posts. We will meet these humans with everything we have. But the room had grown oddly quiet. Many council members remained seated, watching him with ancient, tired eyes. They had seen enough war to know when one was truly lost. While the Drachnid Council fractured over their next move, the Phoenix entered their home system, its presence undeniable. Across the capital station's command center, stunned officers listened as Earth's ambassador broadcast a simple yet devastating truth. Humanity had won, not by conquest, but by sheer strategic brilliance. Now the Drachnid had to choose whether to resist or embrace a new future. Commander Reynolds stood at the Phoenix's bridge, watching the massive Drachnid capital station fill the view screen. Its metal spires sparkled like ice crystals against the backdrop of space. Ambassador Moreno, you're clear to broadcast, he said. The AI's calm voice echoed across all frequencies. People of the Drachnid hegemony, I speak to you today with hope, not threats. Look at our actions. We have disabled your ships without destroying them. We've protected your civilians. Ask yourselves, is this the behavior of the monsters your leaders claim we are? Lieutenant Kim's console lit up, Commander, I'm picking up encrypted channels from inside the station. Multiple signatures. These are high-ranking officers. Dr. Carter rushed to analyze the data. The encryption matches what Vacrol provided. These are legitimate contacts, sir. In the ship's marine bay, Master Sergeant Delgado checked his non-lethal weapons one last time. His team stood ready, but their usual pre-mission energy was subdued. "Never thought I'd say this," he muttered, "but I hope we don't have to use any of this gear." "Commander," Dr. Carter called out, "I finished calibrating the EMP device. One pulse will knock out their weapon systems while keeping life support intact." Reynolds nodded, studying the tactical display. The signals from the defectors blinked like stars of hope. "Kim, can you verify their positions?" "Yes, sir. They're spread across key sections: defense control, communications, even the main reactor room." She looked up. "They're waiting for our signal." Ambassador Moreno's broadcast continued. "To those who question, to those who seek peace, we offer partnership, not subjugation. The Phoenix comes not to conquer, but to free." Reynolds straightened his uniform. "Looks like we have a choice to make." He turned to his crew. "Carter, ready that pulse but hold it in reserve. Kim, open a secure channel to our new friends inside. Delgado," he clicked his comm, "prepare your team for a coordinated insertion." "Both options, sir?" Kim asked. "The show of force and the infiltration?" "Both," Reynolds confirmed. "We'll give peace every chance, but we're not walking in blind. Tell our contacts inside. We move together, or not at all." As the Phoenix's transmission spread across Drachnid space, inside the capital station, Chief Vacrol made his decision. His claws danced over the security consoles, deactivating vital defensive systems before reinforcements could arrive. But as the station's alarms screamed their warning, Carcax's boots thundered toward the control room, ready to crush the last vestiges of dissent. In the dimly lit control room of the Drachnid capital station, Security Chief Vacrol's claws moved swiftly across the control panel. His heart raced as he input the secret codes that would disable key defense systems. "Are you certain about this?" Dr. Nexus whispered, keeping watch at the door. "We've seen enough death," Vacrol replied, his scaled fingers trembling slightly. "The humans have shown us a better way." The screen flashed green as defense systems began shutting down one by one. Vacrol sent the all-clear signal to the Phoenix's teams. Within moments, silent corridors opened up throughout the station's security grid. Suddenly, alarms blared. Admiral Carcax's voice boomed through the station speakers. "Multiple system failures detected. All security teams, sweep every control room." Vacrol and Nexus exchanged worried looks. They heard heavy footsteps approaching. "Traitors!" Carcax burst through the door with a squad of loyal soldiers. His eyes blazed with fury. "You dare sabotage our defenses?" Nexus stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. "Your pride blinds you, Admiral. Look at the reports coming in. Our own fleets are refusing to fight." A junior officer rushed in holding a datapad. "Admiral, the Third Fleet has stood down. The 5th and 7th are following suit." "Lies!" Carcax grabbed the pad and crushed it. "I'll deal with those cowards later." He turned to his soldiers. "Lock them up." "Your way leads only to destruction," Nexus said firmly. "The humans could have destroyed us all, but they chose mercy. They're better than us, Carcax. Better than you." Carcax's face twisted with rage. He struck Nexus across the face, sending her stumbling backward. "I will not be lectured by traitors." He stormed toward the door. "Keep them here. I'm going to the command center to override this sabotage myself." As Carcax disappeared down the corridor, Nexus touched her bruised face. She looked at Vacrol with growing dread. He'll destroy the station before he admits defeat. All these people. The loyal soldiers shifted uncomfortably, their weapons lowered, as more reports of surrendering Drachnid ships flooded the emergency channels. Vacrol and Nexus barely had time to brace themselves before Carcax stormed in, his rage barely contained. But even as he sought to regain control, it was already slipping from his grasp. Outside, Phoenix's boarding pods breached the station's outer hull, and inside, Delgado's Marines moved with precision, preparing for the final confrontation. Admiral Carcax's voice boomed through the station's speakers. "All loyal warriors to the command center. Kill any human intruders on sight." Master Sergeant Delgado led his team through the dimly lit corridors, their footsteps nearly silent. The non-lethal weapons in their hands hummed softly. "3 guards ahead," Lieutenant Kim's voice crackled through their comms. "Taking cover behind the blast doors." Delgado signaled his team. They tossed sonic disruptors that filled the area with waves of disorienting energy. The Drachnid guards stumbled, their weapons clattering to the floor before Delgado's team could stun them safely. "Command center is 2 levels up," Kim reported. "Dr. Carter says the station's power grid is stable, but she's monitoring unusual energy spikes." "Copy that," Delgado whispered. "Keep those systems in check, Doc. We don't want any surprises." They encountered more resistance as they neared the command center. Drachnid loyalists fought fiercely, but the human stun weapons proved devastatingly effective. Bodies lay unconscious but breathing in their wake. Dr. Nexus's voice cut through their comms. "Hurry! Carcax is trying to access the self-destruct protocols." The team doubled their pace. When they reached the command center's massive doors, they found Vakral waiting. "He sealed himself inside with 8 guards, Vakral said. "I can override the door, but—" "Do it," Delgado ordered. The doors slid open with a hiss. Inside, Admiral Carcax stood at the main console, his massive frame rigid with fury. His loyal guards raised their weapons. "Not one step closer," Carcax snarled. His clawed hand hovered over the console. "I'll destroy this entire station before I let humans dictate terms to the hegemony." "Look around you, Admiral," Delgado said calmly, keeping his weapon lowered. "We could have destroyed your fleet. Instead, we disabled your ships. We could have killed your soldiers. Instead, we stunned them." "Weakness," Carcax spat. "You're too afraid to show true strength." "Sir," Kim's voice came through everyone's comms. "Dr. Carter confirms he's accessing the self-destruct sequence." Carcax's hand moved toward the final command. In one fluid motion, Delgado fired. The stun blast caught Carcax squarely in the chest. The mighty admiral staggered, his eyes wide with disbelief as his legs gave way. The guards lowered their weapons, seeing their leader fall without a drop of blood spilled. Carcax tried to push himself up, his arms shaking but couldn't rise. He stared at the humans who had breached the very heart of his empire. "How?" he whispered. "One ship. Just one ship." His head dropped to his chest as the fight drained from his body. The proud admiral of the Drachnid hegemony had finally been humbled, not by overwhelming force, but by precise, measured strength and unwavering mercy. As the dust settled from the brief but decisive battle in the command center, the Phoenix's crew took stock of their victory. Carcax, stunned and defeated, was restrained under Delgado's watchful eye. For the first time in Drachnid history, the great hegemony was at a crossroads, one that would define its future forever. The command center's doors slid open with a soft hiss. Commander Reynolds strode in, his steps measured and calm. The tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. "Commander Reynolds." Dr. Nexus stepped forward, her voice steady. "I can help bridge this discussion." Carcax stood rigidly by the main console, his scales reflecting the dim emergency lighting. His proud bearing remained, even in defeat. "The High Council must hear the full terms," Carcax demanded, his voice hoarse but firm. "We are not some minor species to be simply dismissed." Reynolds nodded. "We agree. That's why we're here to talk, not to destroy." From the comm system, Lieutenant Kim's voice reported, "All sectors secured, minimal injuries on both sides." "Your single ship," Carcax said, "managed what entire armadas failed to do." His words carried both bitterness and reluctant admiration. Reynolds laid out the terms clearly. The Drachnid forces will stand down. Every species under your control gets a choice: stay or leave. And most importantly, we'll form an interspecies council to write a new charter. Vakrul, who stood near the environmental controls he had helped protect, spoke up. It's a fair offer, more than fair, given what could have happened. Some Drachnid officers muttered angrily, their pride stinging, but others nodded slowly, seeing the wisdom in acceptance. You could have destroyed us, Nexus observed. Instead, you chose to disable and preserve. That speaks volumes about Earth's intentions. Dr. Carter's voice came through the comm. All station systems are stable. No signs of sabotage or hidden weapons protocols. Delgado's team maintained their positions, weapons lowered but ready. The Master Sergeant watched the Drachnid officers carefully, noting how their postures shifted from hostile to considering. A new charter, Karkax repeated, testing the words. With the Drachnid voice still heard? Equal representation, Reynolds confirmed. Your experience in managing multiple star systems will be valuable, but no more conquests. The room fell silent. Centuries of Drachnid military tradition hung in the balance. Karkax's eyes met Reynolds' steady gaze, two commanders measuring each other's resolve. Years passed, and the war that lasted mere hours became legend. Now, as young historian Kextal guided visitors through the museum, he spoke of the battle not with shame, but with admiration. Standing before the Phoenix's preserved command console, he recited the words that changed history. They could have sent a fleet to conquer us, but they sent one ship to save us. From ourselves. From the personal archives of junior historian Kextal, Drachnid Historical Institute. I stand before the Phoenix Memorial, my scales tingling with excitement as I prepare for today's tour. The holographic displays flicker to life, showing scenes from what we now call the 7-Hour War. Welcome, visitors, I begin, gesturing to the detailed model of the Phoenix. This single human vessel changed everything we thought we knew about power in the galaxy. The artifacts tell an amazing story. Display cases hold the non-lethal weapons used by Marine Commander Delgado's teams. Next to them sit the quantum disruptors that disabled our outposts without destroying them. The Phoenix wasn't built to destroy, I explained to my wide-eyed audience. Every system, from its stealth technology to its AI interfaces, was designed to prevent unnecessary deaths. I point to Dr. Nexus's original research notes, preserved under crystal. Her insights helped us understand the brilliant Prometheus protocol, the AI system that let one ship appear to be everywhere at once. But the most shocking truth came later, I continue, moving to the final exhibition hall. Earth had an entire fleet of advanced warships. They chose to send just one vessel, the Phoenix, as a message of restraint. The recording of Admiral Karkax's resignation speech plays softly in the background. His words still move me. I saw their mercy as weakness. I was wrong. They had the power to destroy us, but chose a harder path, showing us a better way. My audience gasps at the next display, the founding document of the Multi-Species Council, with Dr. Nexus's signature prominent among the delegates. The hegemony's dissolution led to something greater, a federation built on cooperation and shared progress. I saved the most powerful artifact for last, Commander Reynolds' original mission briefing. It specified clear rules, minimal casualties, no permanent damage, and constant openness to diplomatic solutions. Standing before the restored Phoenix model, I read the inscription that never fails to humble me. Admiral Karkax's final public words. They could have sent a fleet to conquer us, but they sent one ship to save us from ourselves. If you enjoyed the story of Jonathan, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.